want to bring the conversation in studio. Joining me now is Tom Gross, international affairs commentator. Now, as someone who grew up in the UK, can you describe the general rhetoric regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, it can be very heated indeed, possibly more than any other conflict in the world. At the present time, the British Labour Party, which may form the next government, it did very well in the election in June, has several senior people in it who are I would say, focused, possibly obsessed by the question of Israel. They've made all kinds of controversial remarks. They're on the extreme left and they're on the extreme pro-Palestinian side. And some people would argue they don't believe in the existence of Israel. So it gets very heated. And, you know, there's increased anti-Semitism in Britain. And many British Jews and others feel that the anti-Semitism is being stoked by sort of extreme anti-Zionism, which has slipped over often into anti-Semitism or even into Holocaust denial in certain cases.
It's interesting that you use the word obsessed to describe the way they feel about Israel. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, I mean, for example, the media, I'm a journalist, the amount of coverage given to this little conflict compared to all the multitude of other conflicts around the world, many of which involve far more fatalities and refugees and so on, it's very, very disproportionate. So, you know, papers like The Guardian and indeed other papers have been running editorial after editorial in very, very heated language about Israel and the Palestinians, and they don't use that kind of heated language in regard to other conflicts, or they don't use quite that kind of tone, even when Britain itself is involved. For example, Britain has been involved, along with the United States, with the fighting in Mosul in Iraq and Raqqa in Syria. There are reports that 10,000 civilians have died in recent months in Mosul in the Allied bombing to liberate that city from Islamic State, I should add. And yet there's been zero coverage, no film footage, no pictures of dead civilians. Whereas when Israel has killed civilians, usually inadvertently, those same pictures are shown again and again and again across different BBC channels, whipping people up into thinking that Israel is the most murderous regime on earth when it is not.
So you're saying they're largely quiet on other issues while very vocal on the Israel-Palestine issue?
Well, in relative terms, absolutely. It's not that they're quiet. They adopt a different kind of tone. They use different kinds of film footage. They interview different kinds of people. In fact, your correspondent today, I mean, one example of exaggeration is the media have been saying that hundreds of thousands or 100,000 people would come today, and your correspondent suggesting the numbers are much smaller than that, and that's an example of how they stoke things up.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off there. We're out of time. We're going to take a short break. Thank you so much, Tom, for being with us. We'll have more guests in studio when we return on our special edition.